jobless and broke. She spent her last $10 on a flooded garage, and what she discovered inside shocked everyone. Most people would give up. She didn't. Instead, she made a decision that looked completely insane, even hopeless. She bought a sunken, rotting garage that nobody wanted. People laughed at her. They said she had lost her mind. But just hours later, she stepped into that dark, filthy water and uncovered something no one could have ever imagined. Something hidden, something valuable, something that would change her life forever. Stay until the end, because what she turns this place into will leave you speechless. The night air felt colder than it should have as Helena Cross sat alone on a cracked sidewalk, clutching the last $10 she had left in the world. Just weeks ago, she had a job, a small apartment, and a life that, while modest, felt safe. Now, everything was gone. No job, no home, no one to call. Cars passed by without slowing, their headlights briefly illuminating her tired face before disappearing into the darkness, just like every opportunity that had slipped through her fingers. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Sleep came in short, restless bursts, and the silence. It was the worst part. It made her feel invisible. So when she saw the listing, flooded garage, $10, it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like her last chance. People laughed when she showed up. They whispered as she stepped closer to the rusted door, water seeping out from beneath it. The smell alone was enough to make anyone turn away. But Helena didn't. She couldn't. Because when you've already lost everything, even a place like this starts to feel like hope. And what she was about to discover behind that door would change everything. The next morning came with no ceremony, no sudden burst of hope, no miracle waiting at the door. Just gray skies, damp air, and the same crushing reality Helena Cross had fallen asleep with the night before. But this time, she didn't stay down. She stood in front of the rusted garage again, her fingers trembling slightly as she gripped the cold metal handle. The faint smell of rot and stagnant water seeped through the cracks, warning her to turn back just like everyone else had. "Don't do it," someone muttered from across the street. "You're wasting your time," another voice called out. Helena heard them. Of course she did. But for once, she didn't listen. With a sharp breath, she pulled the door open. A wave of foul air hit her instantly, thick, sour, and suffocating. The dim light revealed a shallow pool of murky water covering the entire floor, its surface barely disturbed except for slow, oily ripples. Bits of debris floated aimlessly, old tools, broken wood, things too decayed to even recognize. Anyone else would have turned around. Helena stepped inside. Her shoes sank into the water with a quiet, sickening sound. The cold shot through her instantly, creeping up her legs like a warning she refused to obey. She hesitated for just a second, just long enough for doubt to whisper in her ear, "What are you doing? This is insane. You can't fix this." Her chest tightened. For a moment, it felt like everything: the job she lost, the eviction notice, the night spent staring at nothing was pressing down on her all at once. She closed her eyes. And then something shifted. Because the truth was, she had nothing left to lose. When Helena opened her eyes again, they weren't filled with fear anymore. They were steady, determined, almost defiant. "Then I'll start here," she whispered to herself. No tools, no plan, no idea what she was really getting into. Just her. She bent down and reached into the filthy water, pulling out the first thing her hands could find: a rusted metal pipe, heavy and slick. She dragged it out and tossed it aside. Then another piece, and another. Minutes turned into an hour. An hour turned into several. The water didn't get any clearer. The smell didn't get any better. Her hands quickly became numb, her clothes soaked, her hair sticking to her face. Every movement was harder than the last. But she didn't stop. Across the street, the small crowd that had gathered earlier hadn't left. If anything, it had grown. She's still in there. She won't last an hour. This is just sad. Their voices drifted in and out, mixing with the hollow echo of water sloshing against concrete. At one point, Helena slipped. Her foot caught on something beneath the surface, and before she could react, she fell hard into the water. A sharp gasp escaped her as the cold swallowed her completely. For a second, she didn't move. She just lay there, soaked, exhausted, humiliated. And suddenly, the weight of everything hit her again. Tears welled up, blending with the dirty water around her face. Maybe they were right. Maybe this was pointless. Maybe she had already lost too much to ever come back from this. Her body felt heavy, like it didn't belong to her anymore. All she had to do was stay there. Give up. Let this be the end of whatever fight she thought she had left. But then, her fingers brushed against something solid. Not like the soft, decaying debris around her. This was different, firm, unmoving. She frowned, pushing herself up slightly despite the ache in her arms. Slowly, she reached down again, her hand tracing along the object beneath the water. It wasn't random junk. It was smooth. Too smooth. Helena wiped the grime from her hand and leaned closer, squinting through the dim light. Her heart began to beat a little faster, not from fear this time, but from something else. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. Curiosity. She cleared more water away, pushing aside debris, ignoring the sting in her fingers as they scraped against hidden edges. Inch by inch, the surface revealed itself. Stone. Not broken, not crude. Carved. Deliberate. Her breath caught in her throat. This doesn't make sense, she murmured. Why would something like this be here beneath a flooded, abandoned garage that no one cared about? For the first time since she walked in, Helena stopped seeing a dead end and started seeing a question. She looked around the space again, really looked this time. The walls, the structure, the way the water pooled unnaturally in certain areas. What if? This place wasn't what it seemed. The voices outside faded into the background. The exhaustion, the cold, the hunger, it was all still there, but it didn't control her anymore, because something had changed. That moment lying in the dirt, ready to give up, had been the lowest point. And somehow, right there at the bottom, she had found something unexpected, a reason to keep going. Helena slowly pushed herself to her feet, water dripping from every inch of her. Her body screamed for rest. Her mind begged her to stop, but her eyes, they were locked onto that patch of stone beneath the surface. Whatever this place was, it wasn't just a garage, and if she walked away now, she would never know the truth hidden beneath it. So she took a shaky breath and kept digging. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, Helena Cross could barely feel her hands. Every muscle in her body ached. Her clothes clung to her skin, and the cold had settled deep into her bones. But she didn't stop, because now she knew something was hidden here. The carved stone she had discovered earlier refused to leave her mind. It didn't belong in a place like this, not under layers of filth, not buried beneath years of neglect. It was too precise, too intentional. And that meant one thing. There was more. Helena grabbed a broken plank and began pushing away thicker clumps of sludge near the far wall. The water there seemed darker, heavier, like it had been undisturbed for decades. Every movement released a foul smell that made her stomach twist, but she forced herself to keep going. "Come on, there has to be something," she whispered, her voice trembling more from exhaustion than fear. Her makeshift tool struck something solid. Not stone this time. Wood. She froze. Slowly. Carefully. Helena dropped to her knees and reached down, her fingers tracing the edge of the object. It wasn't just a random piece of debris. It was flat. Wide. Structured. A panel. Her heart began to pound. She cleared more of the sludge away, revealing a large, waterlogged wooden surface embedded into the wall itself. It stretched wider than she expected, its edges barely visible beneath layers of grime. The wood was dark, swollen from years underwater but still intact. "Why would this be sealed off?" she murmured. Behind her, faint voices echoed again from outside. "She's still digging. She's lost it." Helena ignored them, because something about this didn't feel accidental. This wasn't just trash someone left behind. This was hidden. Her breathing grew heavier as she pressed her palm against the wood. It didn't budge. Whatever was behind it had been sealed deliberately. For a moment, doubt crept back in. What if there's nothing? What if this is just another dead end? She swallowed hard, her throat dry despite the damp air around her. No, she didn't come this far to stop now. Helena stood up, scanning the space until her eyes landed on a rusted crowbar half submerged nearby. She waded through the water, grabbed it, and returned to the panel. Her hands shook as she wedged the metal edge into a narrow gap along the side. "Please," she whispered, not even sure what she was asking for anymore. She pushed. Nothing. She adjusted her grip, planting her feet more firmly despite the unstable ground beneath her. And then, she pushed again. A sharp crack split through the silence. Helena gasped as the wood shifted slightly, a small stream of trapped water spilling out from the opening. Her heart raced now, adrenaline cutting through her exhaustion. "It's moving." She forced the crowbar deeper and pulled with everything she had left. Another crack, louder this time. The panel groaned, resisting as if it had been holding its secret for years, refusing to let go. But Helena refused to let go first. With a final, desperate effort, she yanked the crowbar backward, and the wooden partition gave way. The sound echoed through the garage as part of the panel collapsed inward, sending a wave of water rushing through the newly opened gap. Helena stumbled back, nearly losing her balance again. For a second, everything went still. Then, slowly, light, faint at first, but unmistakable. Helena's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" She stepped closer, her breath catching in her throat as she peered through the broken opening. What she saw on the other side didn't make sense, not in this place, not in this reality she had been living in just hours ago. Stone, but not rough, unfinished stone like the kind you'd expect in an abandoned structure. This was different. Each surface was smooth, carefully shaped, fitted together with a precision that spoke of craftsmanship, not decay. Subtle patterns were etched along the edges, barely visible under the dim light filtering in from somewhere beyond. Helena pushed more of the broken wood aside, widening the opening. And then she saw it. A channel, carved directly into the stone floor behind the wall. Water cleaner, clearer, flowed steadily through it, guided along a perfectly designed drainage system that stretched deeper into the hidden space. Her mind struggled to catch up with what her eyes were seeing. This was planned. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. This place, this entire structure had been built with purpose. The flooding in the garage suddenly made sense. It wasn't just damage. It was overflow, misuse, neglect of something that had once worked flawlessly. Helena stepped through the broken opening, her feet now touching a firmer, more stable surface beneath the shallow water. The air felt different here, less suffocating, less rotten, as if this part of the space had been protected, preserved, waiting. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she looked around, taking in every detail. The walls, the floor, the subtle incline of the drainage system. Whoever built this, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they never meant for it to be seen like this. A chill ran down her spine, not from the cold, but from realization. This place was never just a garage. Behind her, the distant voices had gone quiet, because even from outside, something had changed. Helena turned back toward the opening she had created, the broken wooden panel now floating uselessly in the water. That wall had been hiding something incredible, something valuable, something no one else had seen, and he had just uncovered it. For the first time since losing everything, Helena Cross wasn't standing in ruin anymore. She was standing at the edge of a discovery, and deep down she knew this was only the beginning. Helena Cross stood frozen in the narrow opening, her breath shallow, her mind struggling to process what she had just uncovered. Moments ago, this place had been nothing more than a flooded, rotting garage, something the world had already dismissed as worthless. But now it felt like she was standing at the threshold of something extraordinary. She stepped forward slowly, her movements cautious, almost reverent, as if afraid that one wrong move might shatter the illusion. The shallow water beneath her feet gradually receded as she moved deeper into the hidden space, replaced by smooth stone that felt solid, intentional. This wasn't decay. This was design. Her fingers brushed along the wall beside her. The surface was cool, perfectly shaped. Each stone fitted seamlessly with the next. There was no randomness here, no neglect, only precision. "Who built this?" she whispered, her voice echoing faintly in the quiet chamber. Then she saw it. At first, it was just a faint glow, head, soft, almost unreal. Natural light. Helena frowned, her heart beginning to race again. That didn't make sense. She was underground, wasn't she? She moved faster now, drawn toward the light like it was pulling her forward. Step by step, the space around her began to open up, the narrow passage giving way to something far larger. And then she stopped. Her breath caught. The world seemed to fall away, because what stood before her was impossible. A vast, underground chamber stretched out in front of her, far larger than anything the exterior could have ever suggested. Towering panels of reinforced glass rose from floor to ceiling, enclosing the space in a structure that felt both modern and timeless. And beyond that glass, greenery, lush, vibrant, alive, a hidden garden. Deep beneath the surface, sunlight poured in from above through carefully engineered light wells, cascading down into the chamber in golden streams. It illuminated every detail, the clean lines of the stone, the reflections on the glass, the subtle movement of leaves swaying in a space that should have been suffocating, but wasn't. It was breathing. Helena took another step forward, then another, her eyes wide with disbelief. This can't be real. But it was. Every inch of it was real. She approached one of the glass walls, her reflection faintly visible against the brilliance on the other side. Slowly, she lifted her hand and pressed it against the surface. Solid. Cool. Unmistakably there. On the other side, plants thrived in carefully arranged layers. Ferns, climbing vines, even small trees, all sustained by a system she couldn't yet fully understand. Water trickled gently through hidden channels, feeding the greenery, reflecting light in soft, hypnotic patterns. It wasn't just beautiful, it was engineered. Perfectly. Helena's chest rose and fell rapidly, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was seeing. This wasn't a forgotten corner of a broken property. This was a masterpiece, a sanctuary, a vision that someone had once brought to life with intention, care, and brilliance. Her mind raced. Who would build something like this beneath a simple garage? Why hide it? Why abandon it? The questions piled up, but one realization cut through all of them, sharp and undeniable. Everything she believed about this place had been wrong. This wasn't the bottom of the barrel. This wasn't a last resort. This wasn't where her story ended. This was where it began. Helena slowly turned in place, taking in the entire space again, but this time with different eyes. Not as a desperate woman clinging to survival, but as someone standing in the middle of opportunity. Her gaze drifted back toward the flooded garage behind her, the grazy water, the broken debris, the decay. It wasn't useless. It was a cover, a forgotten shell hiding something far greater beneath it. And suddenly, she understood something deeper. Maybe her life wasn't falling apart. Maybe it had been clearing the way. Tears filled her eyes. But this time, they weren't from exhaustion or defeat. They were from something else entirely. Hope. Real, undeniable hope. For the first time in what felt like forever, Helena didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel lost. She didn't feel like the world had discarded her. Because standing there, surrounded by light and life hidden beneath layers of darkness, she saw herself in this place, buried, overlooked, misjudged, but not broken, never broken. Helena took a deep breath, steadying herself as a quiet determination settled in her chest. If something this incredible could survive years of neglect, then maybe she could too. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't here by accident. Her eyes hardened with resolve as she looked around one last time. No longer overwhelmed, but focused. This wasn't just a discovery anymore. It was a responsibility, a second chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. Because the world might have seen a flooded garage worth $10. But Helena Cross had just uncovered something priceless. Helena Cross didn't move for a long time. She just stood there in the center of the underground sanctuary, her chest rising and falling slowly, as her eyes traced every detail again and again, almost as if she were afraid it might disappear if she looked away. But it didn't. It was real. And now, it was hers. That thought alone should have been enough to overwhelm her. A place like this, hidden, untouched, extraordinary, was more than she could have ever imagined owning. Just days ago, she had been counting coins, wondering how she would survive the week. And now she was standing inside something that felt priceless. But as incredible as it was, something didn't sit right. Because places like this don't just exist without a story. They don't get built and then forgotten. Someone made this, Helena whispered, her voice echoing softly against the glass and stone. Someone cared enough to design every inch. Her eyes narrowed slightly. So why hide it? The question lingered in the air, unanswered but heavier now. Helena turned, scanning the space more carefully this time, not as someone in awe, but as someone searching, looking for clues, looking for truth. She moved deeper into the chamber. following the subtle lines of the stone floor as they curved gently toward the far end of the structure. The greenery thinned slightly there, giving way to a quieter, more enclosed section, less open, more deliberate. Something about it felt different, intentional, as if this part of the space had been meant for something more private. Her steps slowed, and then she saw it. A small alcove carved directly into the stone wall. Unlike the rest of the structure, this section wasn't exposed. It was sealed, partially hidden behind a panel of fitted stone that blended almost perfectly with its surroundings. If she hadn't been looking carefully, she would have missed it entirely. Her heart began to pound again. Another hidden section. Helena stepped closer, her fingers brushing along the edge of the stone panel. Just like the wooden partition before, this wasn't random. This was meant to be concealed. She pressed against it gently. Nothing, then harder. A faint shift. Her breath caught. "Okay," she whispered, steadying herself. She adjusted her grip and pushed again, this time with more force. A soft grinding sound echoed as the panel slid slightly to the side, releasing a faint gust of cool, dry air, different from the dampness outside. Preserved, protected. Helena slowly opened the space enough to peer inside. Darkness greeted her at first, but as her eyes adjusted, shapes began to form. Shelves, stone shelves, and on them, boxes, old, carefully arranged, untouched by water. Her pulse quickened as she stepped inside the alcove. Her movements slower now, more cautious. There was a strange weight in the air here, not physical, but emotional, like stepping into a memory that didn't belong to her, yet somehow did. Helena reached out and picked up the nearest box. Dust coated its surface, but it was intact, preserved far better than anything she had seen outside. She hesitated. Something inside her told her this wasn't just another discovery. This was important. Her fingers trembled slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside, documents. Stacks of them. Old papers, yellowed with time, but carefully kept. Some tied with thin string, others placed neatly in folders. She swallowed hard. Who kept all this? Carefully. She pulled out the top document. The paper felt fragile in her hands, as if it might crumble if she moved too quickly. Her eyes scanned the page. Blueprints. Detailed architectural drawings. Her breath caught. These weren't just sketches. These were plans. The very plans used to build this place. Every line, every measurement, every system, all laid out with precision. Whoever created this was a genius. Helena flipped to another page. Notes, handwritten. Detailed explanations about drainage systems, light wells, structural integrity. The same features she had just witnessed with her own eyes. Her heart began to race faster now. This wasn't random documentation. This was a record, a legacy. She reached deeper into the box, pulling out another bundle of papers, this time bound together more tightly. As she untied the string, something slipped loose and fell to the ground. A photograph. Helena froze. Slowly. She bent down and picked it up. It was old, faded around the edges, but still clear enough to make out the image. A group of people stood together in front of a structure. Not the garage, but something familiar. Her eyes narrowed. The glass, the stone, the layout. It was this place. Before it had been buried. Before it had been forgotten. Her chest tightened. She looked closer at the faces in the photo. Strangers. At least, that's what she thought at first. Until her breath stopped. No. Her fingers tightened around the photo. One of the faces. She recognized it. Not because she had seen them before, but because she had seen someone like them, in old family pictures, in memories she hadn't thought about in years. The same eyes, the same expression, the same bloodline. "That's not possible," she whispered, her voice shaking now. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Why would her family be connected to this place? Why had no one ever mentioned it? Why had it been left to rot, hidden beneath something so worthless? Her hands moved quickly now, flipping through more documents, searching, desperate for answers. And then she found it. A name, written clearly across one of the original plans. A surname she knew all too well. Her own. Helena staggered back slightly, the weight of the realization hitting her all at once. This was ours. The words barely left her lips, because suddenly everything changed. This wasn't just a lucky find. This wasn't just a hidden masterpiece waiting to be discovered. This was personal, deeply personal. This place had always been part of her story. She just never knew it. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they carried something far heavier than before. Not just hope, not just relief, but connection, meaning, identity. All the years she had felt lost, disconnected, like she didn't belong anywhere. And now, standing here, surrounded by something her own family had once built, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Rooted. Helena looked around the chamber again, her vision blurred slightly by emotion. This wasn't just a place she could rebuild. This was a place she could reclaim. Fixing it wouldn't just give her a home. It would give her answers, purpose, a second chance not just to survive, but to understand who she really was. Her grip tightened around the photograph as a quiet determination settled deep within her. "They built this," she whispered, "which means I can restore it." And for the first time since everything fell apart, Helena Cross didn't feel like she was starting from nothing. She felt like she had just uncovered everything. Helena Cross didn't sleep that night. Not because she couldn't, but because she refused to. She sat inside the hidden chamber, the old photograph still resting in her hands. Her mind replaying everything over and over again, the garage, the stonework, the documents, the name. Her name. For so long, Helena had believed her life was nothing more than a series of losses. A job gone. A home gone. A future slipping further out of reach with every passing day. But now it felt like she had been walking through the wrong story all along. Because this place was proof that she came from something more, and if her family had built something this extraordinary, then maybe she wasn't as broken as she thought. The next morning, Helena didn't hesitate. She got to work. The transformation didn't happen overnight. In fact, the first few days were brutal. The garage above still needed to be cleared. The flooding had to be controlled. The debris years, maybe decades of it, had to be removed piece by piece. Her hands blistered. Her muscles screamed. There were moments when her body begged her to stop. But something inside her had changed. This wasn't survival anymore. This was purpose. Helena moved with a different kind of energy, now focused, relentless. Every broken plank she dragged out. Every bucket of water she dumped. Every inch of space she cleared. It all felt like she was uncovering not just the structure, but herself. And slowly, things began to shift. The water level dropped. The smell faded. Light started to reach deeper into the space. What once looked like decay began to reveal structure. Design. Intention. But not everyone was impressed. Word had spread. The same people who once laughed at her were now watching more closely. Too closely. She found something in there. I heard it's worth money. No way she keeps that to herself. The whispers grew louder. Curiosity turned into attention. Attention turned into pressure. One afternoon, as Helena was hauling out another load of debris, she noticed a man standing near the entrance of the garage. Well-dressed. Too well-dressed for this neighborhood. He didn't look curious. He looked calculating. "You, Helena Cross?" he asked casually. She didn't answer right away. Her grip tightened slightly on the bucket in her hand. "Who's asking?" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say, I represent people who are very interested in this property." There it was. Helena felt it immediately, the shift. This wasn't about curiosity anymore. This was about ownership, opportunity, control. "I'm not selling," she said firmly. The man chuckled softly, glancing around the garage as if he already owned it. "You bought a flooded garage for $10, he said. "Now suddenly you think you've struck gold." Helena said nothing, because he wasn't entirely wrong. But he also didn't understand. This wasn't about money. Not anymore. "This place," she said slowly, her voice steady, "means more than you think." The man studied her for a moment. Then he stepped closer. "Everything has a price." Silence. Tension filled the air between them. Then Helena shook her head. "Not this." For a brief second, something flickered across his expression, annoyance, but it vanished just as quickly. "Think about it," he said, slipping a business card into her hand. "People like you don't get opportunities like this twice." He turned and walked away, but his words lingered. "People like you." Helena looked down at the card in her hand. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was he right? Was this too big for her? Too complicated? Too dangerous to hold on to? Her eyes drifted back toward the hidden entrance, the space below. The place her family had built. No, this wasn't too big for her. This was exactly where she was supposed to be. Days passed, then weeks, and Helena didn't stop. She learned. She studied the documents she had found, slowly understanding the systems her family had designed, the drainage, the light wells, the structure itself. She made mistakes, plenty of them. At one point, she accidentally disrupted part of the water flow system, causing a section of the chamber to flood again. Another time, she nearly shattered a glass panel trying to clean it with the wrong tools. Each mistake could have broken her before, but now they fueled her, because every problem had a solution, and every solution brought her closer to restoring what had been lost. Then came the night everything changed again. Helena had stayed late, working under a dim, portable light, carefully clearing one of the deeper channels in the drainage system. The air was quiet, almost too quiet. And then, a sound. Faint, metal. She froze, slowly. She turned her head toward the direction of the noise. The entrance. Someone was there. Her heart began to pound. "Hello," she called out cautiously. No response. Just silence. Then, another sound. Closer this time. Footsteps. Helena's pulse spiked. She wasn't alone. Carefully, she reached for a nearby tool, a heavy metal bar, and gripped it tightly. Who's there? Still nothing. But she could feel it now. Someone was inside, watching, waiting, and in that moment, something inside Helena shifted again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was resolve. Because this place, this wasn't just an opportunity anymore. It was hers to protect, her family's legacy, her second chance, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it away. Not now. Not ever. Helena stepped forward, her grip steady, her voice no longer trembling. "If you're here for this place," she said, her eyes locking onto the shadows ahead, "you picked the wrong person to mess with." The silence that followed was heavy, uncertain, but one thing was clear. The woman who once sat on that sidewalk, holding her last $10, she was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone unbreakable. And this time, she wasn't just fighting to survive. She was fighting for something worth everything. The shadow didn't move. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze inside the underground sanctuary. Helena Cross stood firm, her grip tight around the metal bar, her eyes locked forward, unflinching. Then, footsteps retreated, faint at first, then faster. Whoever had been there was gone. Helena didn't chase them. She didn't need to, because something far more important had just happened. For the first time in her life, she didn't run. The days that followed were different. Not easier, not calmer, but stronger. Helena reinforced the entrance. She installed temporary locks, secured weak points, and worked longer hours than ever before. But now, every movement carried a quiet confidence, a certainty that no one could shake her anymore. Because this place was no longer just a discovery. It was her stand. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the impossible became real. The flooded garage above, gone. In its place stood a clean, minimal structure, simple on the outside, almost unremarkable. No one passing by would ever guess what lay beneath it. But below was a different world. Helena had restored the drainage system, bringing it back to life exactly as it was designed decades ago. Water now flowed smoothly through the carved stone channels, clear and controlled. The glass panels, once clouded and forgotten, now reflected light like mirrors, illuminating the entire underground space. And the garden, it breathed again, green, vibrant, alive, just as it was always meant to be. The town noticed. Of course they did. But not in the way they expected. Because Helena didn't show it off. She didn't invite cameras. She didn't sell the story. Instead, she built something quiet, something meaningful. She began opening the space carefully, selectively to a small group of people. Not investors, not buyers, but people like her, people who had lost something, people who were searching for a second chance. One afternoon, an older man stepped inside the sanctuary for the first time. His clothes were worn, his posture tired, his eyes carrying the same emptiness Helena once knew too well. He looked around slowly, taking in the light, the glass, the living garden beneath the earth. And then he stopped. Tears filled his eyes. "I didn't think places like this existed anymore," he whispered. Helena smiled gently. "They do," she said. "They're just hidden." Words spread, but differently this time. Not as gossip, not as mockery, but as something else. Hope. People didn't come to see a miracle property. They came to feel something, to remember something, to believe that maybe their story wasn't over yet. One evening, as the sun set above and golden light poured down through the hidden wells, Helena stood quietly in the center of the sanctuary. She looked around at the glass, the stone, the garden, the life she had rebuilt from nothing, and for a moment, she let herself feel it all. The cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness, the moment she almost gave up. If she had walked away that day, if she had listened to the voices, if she had believed what the world told her she was worth, none of this would exist. Her eyes drifted down to her hands, still marked with faint scars, still rough from the work, proof of everything she had endured, and everything she had built. A soft breeze moved through the space, rustling the leaves gently. Helena closed her eyes, and for the first time, she felt peace. Not the kind that comes from having everything figured out, but the kind that comes from knowing you didn't give up. She walked toward the glass wall, placing her hand against it, just as she had done on that first day. But this time, she wasn't searching for something. She had already found it. Not just the sanctuary, not just the truth about her family, but herself. From the outside, it still looked like nothing special. Just a small structure, quiet, ordinary. But beneath it lived a story no one would ever forget. A story of hitting rock bottom and discovering that sometimes that's exactly where the strongest foundations are built. Helena Cross stepped back, taking one last look around as the light slowly dimmed into evening. Her life wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was hers, and she had built it piece by piece from the very place everyone else had abandoned. Because in the end, it was never about the garage. It was never about the money. It wasn't even about the hidden masterpiece beneath the ground. It was about a woman who had nothing left and still chose to begin again. Helena Cross's journey teaches a truth most people overlook. Rock bottom isn't the end, it's the beginning of something stronger. She didn't wait for help. She didn't wait for the perfect opportunity. She took what the world rejected, a flooded, worthless garage, and chose to see something more. Not because it was obvious, but because she needed it to be. And that's the difference. Helena didn't just rebuild a space. She rebuilt her belief in herself. Because sometimes, the greatest transformations don't happen when life gives you more. They happen when you refuse to give up with nothing. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. And tell me in the comments, what's your rock bottom moment and how are you turning it into a new beginning?